Well, it's time to get back to Tarantino. This time we'll be discussing what is generally considered to be his weakest film. That would be Death Proof. This was the other part of the dual feature between Tarantino and his longtime friend Robert Rodriguez in their Grindhouse feature. This, combined with Planet Terror, sort of represents these directors simply creating types of films that they loved watching themselves, as opposed to simply modeling their films after them. Basically, instead of making movies heavily modeled after big-budget exploitation films, he really does try to really replicate a low-budget exploitation film of the 1970s. In this case, Death Proof is basically a thriller, but it is also the closest Tarantino has come to a horror movie, with the slasher in this case being an evil stuntman who kills beautiful women with his car. It's certainly unique, but obviously has been done before to some extent. Unlike most of the previous films we discussed though, this is one of the ones that I don't really rewatch. Upon seeing it again for this review, I partially understand, but I do think it did benefit from the rewatch. I typically like to focus on the characters in my reviews, and Tarantino's are a great excuse for this. However, Death Proof is sort of unique in this regard, so I'll be doing things a little bit differently. Just to give you an idea of where I'm going with this, Tarantino films usually have a couple of characters that you can easily remember by name. Most have many. Now, do you remember many of the characters' names from Death Proof? I know I didn't. I just remember that Kurt Russell was the bad guy, and that's about it. The plot synopsis is rather simple. The first half of the film introduces us to our main characters, Shanna, Julia, and Arlene. They are basically young partying girls who like to party. Julia is a DJ who recently put out an ad for Arlene to attract some local guys to her. It involves reciting a poem with a lap dance as a reward. It turns out these girls are being stalked by our villain, Stuntman Mike.
We got to go arrest the bad man, known as Stanley. The deputies took the pistols, they laid them on the shelf. If you want that bad man Stagger Lee, you have to arrest him yourself. The high sheriff asked the bartender.
Mike is a stuntman who uses his stunt car, which is Death Proof, to murder women. He initially introduces himself without a secret identity or anything, as he's pretty well known in the bar. Though he seems to be hitting on Rose McGowan's character, he has his eyes on the three main girls, particularly Arlene.
Hey, Warren! Is there anybody in this place you could vouch for to give me a ride home?
Fair lady, your chariot awaits.
You've been eavesdropping?
Eavesdropping and can't help it here. I think I belong in the latter category.
So, icy hot. You offering me a ride home?
I'm offering you a lift, if when I'm ready to leave, you are too.
And when are you thinking about leaving?
Truthfully, I'm not thinking about it. When I do, you will be the first to know.
Fast forward a year or so, and we meet Mike again, this time in Tennessee. And we also meet our new batch of characters, Abernathy, played by Rosario Dawson, Kim, played by Tracy Thomas, who is basically the Samuel L. Jackson stand-in in this film, Lee, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, a wonderful young actress you've seen before, and Zoe Bell, aka Uma Thurman's stuntwoman, playing her awesome self. These girls are a bit more defined, though they conversate in a very similar way to the other girls, in a Tarantino style. They are all crew members on a Hollywood film, with Kim and Zoe being stuntwomen. After discussing their opinions on relationships and sexual elements specifically, Kim and Zoe decide to have some fun.
Give me a belt.
No. Prada.
Come on, give her the belt.
Magic word.
Please give her the belt.
Just because you asked nicely.
Being fans of old car-based films, they find a Dodge Challenger similar to the one from Vanishing Point, and Zoe wants to pull it off for a stunt now that she has the chance. They want to keep the other girls out of the loop, but Abernathy manages to coax them into going along. Lee is just left behind with the owner of the car as a distraction while they take it for a drive. Then Stuntman Mike tries to kill the girls, only this time he finds out he's messing with the wrong ones. Kim pulls out a gun and shoots Mike in the arm, causing him to flee, squealing and weeping. The girls then decide that they want revenge. They track him down and brutally murder him. And that's the movie. I think the biggest issue with this film is that it's kind of two different movies slapped together, with neither one being long enough to be fully satisfying. I'm not saying it doesn't work for entertainment value, it's still pretty enjoyable throughout, but I certainly can't rank it as great. The best thing about the film is how Tarantino once again manages to use dialogue that seems somehow both realistic and strangely meta. It just makes the girls more enjoyable to listen to, and I could easily watch a movie with either group just having adventures. That would be awesome. Neither group of characters is as defined as many of the others of Tarantino's. Even in Reservoir Dogs, you could get a stronger sense of those characters, even though you technically knew less about them. It's because you simply had more time with them. I will admit I do like the second group of characters more. They are slightly more defined and get the vengeance on our villain, and I think they are just a better group of actresses overall. However, I honestly wanted to see where the stories and the arcs of the first group of girls would go. Julia had some relationship issues that we never fully got to explore, and Arlene is honestly my favorite character in the movie. She just seems like a really nice, if flawed person. I know we said that all Tarantino movies seem to go into questions of morality, with one person being significantly better than the rest. This movie may be the exception, as there isn't enough time to delve into such questions. Once again, though, Arlene being my favorite character kind of fits my pattern so far. Now we come to the biggest issue for me, the potential and mixed results of Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike. This guy could have been ranked as one of the great Tarantino villains. In the first half of the film, he's smooth, charismatic, and ultimately cold and sadistic. He's mysterious and interesting, and seems to be oddly likable up to the point where he murders everyone, of course. Then in the second half of the movie, he turns into this sniveling weakling when things don't go his way. He's crying and pleading for forgiveness as the second group goes after him. Now, I'll admit this is probably intentional. Tarantino may have been implying that the big bad guy was really just a pitiful person despite his tough exterior, and this was to show how despicable a person he truly was. I understand the concept, but it probably would have worked better if I knew more about him. Like the rest of the characters, he's underdeveloped. He's the most underdeveloped character in the film. If he was just a mysterious villain, that would be fine, but then we have to develop our other characters. As much as I like the second group, I'm not entirely sure they were necessary. I think this would have worked better if one or two of the girls survived from the first attack and pursued Mike later for revenge. Maybe they could do a crossover with the first group. It would have been less jarring. Even so, it's good to see the girls get revenge, but it would have been better if it had come from one from the first group, ultimately being more satisfying. It would have also probably been better if the villain didn't become so unthreatening at the end. I certainly had a good time watching this film, but it certainly feels less like a masterpiece than all the other stuff. Personally, I think it's flawed, but still enjoyable. If Tarantino wanted to make an old-school exploitation flick his own way, this is a decent result. And I leave it with a B. Alright everyone, that was the Tarantino film this month. Next time we're going to be talking about The Inglourious Bastards. That's right everybody, killing Nazis.